Hello, everyone. Have you ever felt that something was wrong within your family? A dark secret that continues to haunt and gnaw at you from the inside? Well, the film we are going to discuss today, Hereditary, takes that concept to the most terrifying level. This isn't just a horror film with jump scares, but a psychological terror that slowly creeps into your mind. The film begins with the passing of a grandmother, Ellen Graham. On the surface, it seems like a normal bereavement. However, from the expression on her daughter Annie Graham's face, played brilliantly by Toni Collette, we can already sense that something is not normal. It starts at her mother's funeral, where she feels strange because there are several people she doesn't recognize, as if there was a solid community her mother was a part of that neither she nor her family knew about. Ellen was no ordinary grandmother. She was mysterious, dominant, and her relationship with Annie was full of wounds. Ellen's passing becomes the trigger for a series of devastating events for the Graham family, which consists of Annie, her husband Steve, and their two children, Peter and Charlie. They try to return to a normal life, but how can they, when the grief they feel is so heavy and filled with guilt? In the midst of this sorrow, a second tragedy strikes. A tragic accident claims the life of the youngest child, Charlie, after she accidentally eats a cake containing nuts, triggering her fatal allergy and causing her to struggle for breath. Realizing what was happening, Peter rushes his sister to the hospital. In her panic, Charlie sticks her head out of the car window to get air. At that same moment, Peter, who is speeding, is forced to swerve abruptly to avoid a deer carcass on the road. This tragedy, and the harsh reality Annie must face, shatters their family dynamics. They no longer speak to one another, only blaming each other in silence. The house that should have been a sanctuary now becomes an emotional battlefield. A desperate Annie finds a dark way out, a seance ritual. Introduced by a woman from a grief support group, Annie tries to communicate with Charlie's spirit. Initially, it feels like hope, but it actually opens a door to an evil force. From that moment on, their home is no longer safe. The film slowly uncovers a deeper secret. Annie finds clues that her mother, Grandmother Ellen, was the leader of a cult. This cult was not to be taken lightly. They worship a king of hell named Paimon, and they need a physical vessel for him, a male. Here, we begin to realize that the grief and tragedy that befell the Graham family were no coincidence. They were pawns in a ritual that had been planned long before they were born. The climax is a scene that will haunt you forever. Annie, who is now possessed, and Peter, who has become the main target, must fight against an entity far more powerful than them. The door has been opened, and there is no way to close it again. So why is this film so scary? Not because a ghost suddenly appears, but because it builds fear from the things closest to us, family. Hereditary teaches us that sometimes the most terrifying horror comes from an inheritance, from the blood that flows through our own bodies. It is an unavoidable legacy. And just like the title, it is a horrifying hereditary inheritance. What do you think is the scariest part of this film? Is it the family trauma, or the supernatural terror that is all too real? Leave a comment below. See you in the next video.